गाइस सरप्राइज सरप्राइज सरप्राइज, मैं यूरोप होने के बावजूद मैं इंडिया आया हूं ताकि ये बैकग्राउंड में विदाउट बाबाज ओसीडी गेटिंग अफेक्टेड हम शो करके हफ्ते हफ्ते दर हफ्ते आपके पास आए हमारा काफी फनी और ज्ञानी शो लेकर।
अरे अरे shit
आज
man,
का
Helsinki.
तारीख मैं फिलहाल मैं बहुत मजे कर रहा हूं उधर।
This break has not done well for us because we've suddenly done this intro in one, like we are one Krishi Darshan program.
But we are whatever we wanted to be. That's the beauty.
Oh.
That's the beauty.
Oh.
और आज के समाचार में प्रस्तुत है, चल चालू कर दे एपिसोड। Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of the Internet Said So, a show you take animation of facts and trivia and personal stories and we talk about them. और आज हम बात करने वाले हैं एक बहुत ही अद्भुत मुद्दे के बारे में, और वो मुद्दा है हमारे जेल्स और प्रिजन्स इन जनरल। तो गाइस, आपका फर्स्ट प्रिजन एक्सपीरियंस बताइए।
Thank God.
ये फर्स्ट एक्सपीरियंस है जो नहीं चाहिए लाइफ में।
No, and you know the thing is like it. The thing is, it's not such a big deal to get indicted or spend a night in the locker.
Speak for yourself, Baba.
No. When you're abroad, it doesn't really think, because like you created a ruckus and they took you in and all that because of process. They took you in, dude. I'm telling you, the closest I've come is a speeding ticket, which I got. And I said, not speeding, red light jumping ticket in the US. And the guy gave me a ticket and I was like, bro, but I didn't jump the red light. More importantly, there was a fire brigade in front of me and I didn't see the light, but it was amber when I jumped in. Aisa kuch to main bol ke nikla. Okay? He said, no, if you're not going to pay the fine, that's fine. Come to court. So we went to court on the day and he didn't show up. So, it
would have been a lot easier if you would have just said Zaudena Sahib student aaye, and it would have worked.
This would have cost me more than $200.
But तू जेल नहीं गया ना, मतलब
No.
कौतुक तू कभी जेल गया?
I remember back in 1997. I was a fresh 6 years old and
I thought there was an actual story.
No.
बाबा तू बता ना, जब ब्रिटिश के अगेंस्ट तुम लोग इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम पे जब रिवोल्ट कर रहे थे, तो तू सिविल डिसोबीडियंस के टाइम पे जेल गया था, नॉन कोऑपरेशन के टाइम पे गया था, या कब गया था तू जेल?
नहीं, मैं कावर्ड था।
तू भाग गया, तू ब्रिटिश के साथ था। बट गाइस, मैं जेल गया हूँ।
Oh yeah?
What?
And for the most unlikeliest of reasons that I've said before, but I'll say it again because, hey, is it even a this episode if you have not said the same story 3 times?
Yeah,
so
we do it for the benefit of the new viewers.
For the new viewers who can't get enough and who don't know anything about us, I'll tell you guys. So my great jail story actually happened when I was doing an internship in college, okay, at Lintas, whose then office Lentertainment was in Lower Parel. Now, one day, I have decided to bunk office, where under the office as I'm going, my then girlfriend has called and she said, hey, don't go. So I said, cool, I won't go. So literally lift के से मैं U-turn लेके बाहर चले गया और हम लोग उधर ही मॉल में बैठ के सबवे में खाना दबा रहे। ओह फन। फिर हम लोग घर जाके ऑन्टोराज का एपिसोड देखा, मेरे को पूरा याद है, ठीक है, ये सब हो गया। वही रात को मेरा बॉस फोन करता है, बोलता है किधर था? तो मैं सॉरी सर, आई हैड फीवर, ये वो। सर ओ, सो क्लियरली सबवे इज अ गुड रेसिपी टू गेट रिड ऑफ फीवर। तो मैं बोला सबवे इसको कैसे मालूम? हक दिया, बिकॉज बॉस वाज पासिंग बाय एंड ही सॉ मी सिटिंग देयर। व्हाटएवर ही टोल्ड मी, डोंट कम फ्रॉम टुमारो। तो मैं भीख मांगा कि नो सर सॉरी, ये वो इसके बाद से नहीं होगा, टुमारो आई विल बी देयर। सो द नेक्स्ट मॉर्निंग आई हैव वोकन अप 3 hours before time, gotten fully ready कि नहीं, I cannot be late, and I was taking the train. Unfortunately, train में कुछ delay हो गया because Bombay. Then I caught the fast train which doesn't stop at Lower Parel. It stops much ahead. Except
Bombay Central.
Exactly. Stops at Bombay Central. But before that, there was some signal, so the train had slowed down outside Lower Parel. So I was like, fuck it. Without any concern for my life, never try this ever. I have jumped off the train and crossed the railway tracks and gone and stood on the platform walking up. Never do that. A lot of people lose their lives doing that in India, especially on a daily basis. So never do that. But I did it out of desperation. Guy in plain clothes comes and he's like, "Chal." I said, "Tu kaun hai?" He's like, "Police." I said, "ID dekha, ye kya hai?" He has shown me Haryana police ka ID. I said, "Haryana police." So apparently, this nuisance of people crossing the rail tracks and then in turn getting hit by the train and all had gone to such an extent that Bombay Railway Police, along with Haryana Police, did a special drive where they got their people to come in and catch everybody who's crossing the railway tracks and all of that. So I've been caught like that by these guys saying, "Chal." Now, all of us have been taken to a jail nearby. Okay, like, and we have all been put literally, bro. I'm the only guy, another college student from Wilson. हम लोग दोनों हैं. They've stuck us in the office once, the police का office. Then they put us in a jail which had written women's cell on it. और उसके अंदर हम लोग 22 लोग को डाला था. And I'm just stuck there. Now I can't tell my boss. So I'm taking videos of it. I had those videos for quite some time. To then eventually send it to my boss कि देख, I was on time लेकिन मेरे को पकड़ लिया railway crossing करते वक्त. We spent 4 hours inside that jail. And there's some weird stank because they had caught some like a homeless drug addict type person and they had stuck him in. Nobody has let him go and he's just been there for days.
Oh man.
And we are in the jail with them and I'm just like shitting bricks. So I don't know what is going to happen. Right? Usually you would give some money, try getting out. Nothing has been listened to. Eventually in the evening, they've taken us to something called Anadi Court, where you have to go. They will read out your sentencing. They'll tell you what you've been caught for. And you have to say, "Kabul hai." Literally. Then pay the fine and go. 4.5 hours stuck inside a jail cell that was smelling with 22 different men because I crossed the railway track. So if that experience was intense, I never want to know what any other experience in a jail might be like.
At what point did you consider I should dig a tunnel that will go under the thing?
I didn't have a Rita Hayworth poster, unfortunately, or they didn't put me in the what do you call the Anda cell as they did with Bobby Deol in Goop. But yeah, so like bro, jails in effect, like if you see across the world, right, especially in America, jails have become part of this. They call it right the prison industrial complex, which is like you keep incarcerating more and more people. So the industrial complex gets more money to build more, bigger, higher security, Falana Timka prisons, use prisoners as cheap labor. So this is a whole massive scam that has been going on for quite some time. There's over 2 million people in jails in the US, 1.6 million odd in China. Right? And many people who are also there are for like petty crimes. Like, which is why this whole big thing about legalization, right? Where even for possession of this much, people have been stuck in jail for like years. So that is one of the more darker sides. Like, yes, you need jails, you need to do away with people who are a threat to society. But because this is such a lucrative business, bro, it's insane how much money the prison industrial complex makes.
And the wider thing about crime and punishment is that like how much do jails help? Because a lot of times what happens is that people go in and come out hardened. Right, because you come out even more institutionalized. Correct. And then you have that waterfall effect of once you come out of jail, you have a dhabba of you on you saying ki ye to jail mein reh ke aaya hai. And so you get lesser work opportunities and then your life starts spiraling down a worse and worse path.
Which then that's what increases recidivism as well, right? Like there's so much of that happens.
In fact, like, there are obviously rehabilitation programs for prisoners and all of that. But have you heard of any that have actually succeeded? Because once you are, say, if you're incarcerated for like 10 years and stuff like that, for you, outside life is just it's a figment of your imagination, right? So to speak, with whatever little you remember from before you were in prison, and the world moves on. World changes, right? Whether rightly, wrongly, however, if you've been in prison for a good 10, 12 years, dude, you can go in it one thing and when you come out, suddenly Like 60s में तू अंदर गया, JFK ने बोला था मून जाएगा, तू 70s में बाहर निकला, तू मून पहुंच गया. That's a
No, forget. I mean, I don't know.
massive
In
jump.
Shawshank, in Shawshank, there's that shot, right? Like when Brooks steps out.
Yeah.
And he had gone in before cars.
Yeah.
I mean, before cars were a thing.
Correct.
And he's come and it's become so big, right? It's so big. So yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. No, and there are, by the way, there are prisons of all stripes and varieties all across the world.
Correct.
Some better than others, right? Like there's a list, dude, of 10 of the worst prisons in the world. Okay. And some of them are just unbelievable. Meaning, one second, let me just find that thing here. Yeah. Okay. So, for example, there is a prison, one of the most notorious prisons in the world is a prison called the Black Dolphin Prison. Okay, this prison is in Russia. Now,
wow.
It's located on the border with Kazakhstan. And it's basically a place where they bring in the worst of the worst of Russian society. So you have murderers, rapists, cannibals.
Wow.
Okay. Now, the idea behind this jail is that they inflict maximum suffering on the prisoners. That's the whole point of this jail. Like there is no other point.
It's almost like a gulag from Stalin's time.
It's worse.
Wow.
So basically, now this prison was named because there was a dolphin structure, okay, created by the inmates that sits on the grass at the front reception. Basically, here's what happens. The prisoners in this place, they're watched 24 hours and they are basically made to keep working the second that they wake up. So you're not given 1 second of rest. So you're constantly made to work. Even when you're transported under stress, so that you constantly are just being tortured. So in effect, the people who are running this place are just one step better than the people who are in this place.
Wow.
Right? That's how
or
awful this place
probably,
is.
I mean, even worse, because the amount of willpower that you have to be able to do this and inflict it. The only difference is that you're working in shifts. So there is some respite for you, when you're sort of putting people through this. I mean, there is a contrarian side to this entirely, but I'll come to it last. But yeah, let's continue with the worst jails.
Okay, so there was one jail in I forget, I think it's in Kenya, where the jail was constructed to hold 600 people, but it holds 6,000 people.
Yeah. Bro, same thing with Tihar. Tihar jail is one of the biggest jails in South Asia.
Yeah.
Biggest.
Yeah.
It's supposed to house 6,500 prisoners. It has over 10,000.
Yeah.
So like that's the other big problem with jails.
It's overcrowded.
It's overcrowding, overpopulation, and when you put the worst of the worst together, there is going to be conflict. They're not going to be like, okay, now I'm in prison, now let's chill. In fact, it might just push them over the edge where they're like, bro, fuck it, na, abhi tumhe prison mein hai, main idhar hi hai, to abhi main raja. Like your prison.
What more can you do?
What more can you do? What more can you do? Fuck it. If you kill me, it'll be a respite for me. I'll be fine. Like, because anyway, I'm in for like whatever, multiple counts of whatever, 24 saal se andar hu, to, your gang forming is such a massive thing, right? Because suddenly different kinds of the worst kind of people are put together. Dude, kuch na kuch to usme se wakada hi niklega.
Yeah. Exactly. Like for example, there's a prison in Argentina called the Mendoza prison. Okay, where the conditions were so bad that there was a moment in time where the prisoners, to protest against how bad the conditions were, they sewed their mouth shut.
Wow.
Okay, and guess what happened?
In a prison, that's the worst prison you'd be able to do.
Bro, one of the biggest contrabands in prison is ready-to-eat noodles.
Yeah.
It's a big contraband. I saw a video also about it. It's nuts how much people crave that. Because, after working, you also get some currency, some money, very, very less amount, but that can be used in the prison.
It's also in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's an entire episode on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is...
That's where I must have seen it.
Oh God, Varun. Are you using fiction into reality now?
No, but it is there. It's a big thing. I've read it also, 100%.
Also, by the way, here's another one. Now this is it's such a crazy concept, okay, and it can only come from the place where this prison is located. Okay, the prison is called Camp 14 Cachion. Okay, can you guess where this prison is?
South America.
No. Okay, let me tell you what policy this prison has.
But can you read what is the name of it again?
Camp 14 Cachion.
Cachion. Okay.
Okay. Camp 14 also employs a policy known as the 3 generations of punishment, which means many prisoners are there for merely
North
being
Korea.
related.
Yeah,
Bang
of course. Of course.
Bang on. So
Pyongyang.
people are there because they were related to someone suspected of a crime.
Yeah.
Bro, क्या मीनिंग? अगर तू कोई दूर का रिश्तेदार है, तेरे को पकड़ के डाल
वो
दिया।
हमेशा करते हैं ब्रो. कितने बार तो होता है ना, जब भी नॉर्थ कोरिया से टीम्स या जो भी, अगर देयर इज एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ अ डेलीगेशन, स्पोर्टिंग, डिप्लोमेटिक और अदरवाइज, दैट गोज आउट ऑफ नॉर्थ कोरिया फॉर व्हाटएवर limited international relations that they have, the family members are always held as collateral, that if you don't come back, these guys going
to Camp 14 Cachion.
And I saw this video where one of the guys who escaped North Korea through some way, I don't remember exactly, but he has escaped North Korea. His family is in jail. And not just his immediate family, his distantly related family. तो तू कोई चाचा के मामा के भतीजे का बेटे का फूफा होगा तो तू भी जेल में.
Basically,
just cause one guy went.
In North Korea, they take your family wedding photo.
और जो भी है उसमें
दूर का फूफा, दूर की फूफी.
उधर गलती से कोई पीछे दाल दे रहा है किसी को, उसको भी पकड़ो सर. वो तो केटरिंग का. Get him.
No, imagine if you gate crash that day.
Firstly, you have to gate crash North Korea. Secondly, after that, you gate crash the wedding in North Korea. Shit. That's nuts.
सर मैंने कुछ नहीं किया सर, मैं तो जानता भी नहीं उनको. अच्छा गेट में तो चल.
सर मैं तो छोले खाने आया था, अभी चलते हो प्रेजेंट में छोले खिलाता हूँ साले.
Yeah.
What other worst prisons? I think there was one in Mexico, if I'm not mistaken.
There are no, I mean, we also know the legend of Kalapani.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Which was considered to be one of the most horrific prisons to be in, because it was political dissidents. It was
everything. Everybody.
And also the treatment of it was humiliation. It wasn't just punishment. Like it wasn't just.
It's absolute subjugation of another race. You know, so to speak. I remember there was that movie.
Mentality almost. Yeah. Sazai Kalapani.
Sazai Kalapani. Mohanlal those.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Was it Mohanlal?
Yeah, Sazai Kalapani was Mohanlal. I remember because there was Amrish Puri also in it, and I remember scene where he had to lick his shoes or something like that. Bro, but you know, like there are some prisons that, I mean, they're known for being horrible, but then there are some prisons that are such a big part of pop culture, right? Like Alcatraz, for example. सबको मालूम है Alcatraz के बारे में, like the legend of Alcatraz, why it was built, where it was.
Very similar to Kalapani, by the way.
Very similar, yeah, exactly. Out in the water.
Varun, do you know who directed Kalapani?
Priyadarshan.
Abbas Mastan.
Yes.
Just Priyadarshan.
Oh,
Priyadarshan.
Yeah.
Very out of his.
Suck it.
तुक्का लग गया.
अरे क्यों मैं सब छोड़ के प्रियदर्शन क्यों बोलता? क्योंकि मुझे मालूम था मेंटल पैलेस में जाके निकाले ला मैं उसको, समझा ना?
अच्छा, by the way, so a few facts about Kalapani. It was built right after the British were faced with the revolt of 1857. So when that happened, they were like, you know what? I think we should build something that can house a lot of these political dissidents, so we don't have to face this problem again. So they started building it, and it took them 10 years, okay, to finish building Kalapani. Now, what is interesting about Kalapani is also that it's like a circular structure with a watchtower in the middle. Now, there is a term for this particular structure. This thing is called, the middle structure is called a panopticon. Okay, and a panopticon was a concept that was introduced by a philosopher called Jeremy Bentham, who also, by the way, is just look him up in general. This guy is a crazy person. So Jeremy Bentham came up with this idea that if you it would be wise to build a prison where you have a central watchtower which could keep track of all the other buildings, and the inmates would never know when they were being watched.
Wow.
So that was the idea behind this. So the cellular jail has that concept. And the other very obvious thing about it was put in Andaman because it was, even if you escaped, and we'll be talking about some phenomenal escapes, but even if you escaped, it would be still thousands and thousands of kilometers of water before you reached.
So unless you're
India.
Michael Phelps,
unless you're Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery,
The Rock,
in The Rock.
But like same thing with Alcatraz. Like there's so much folklore around Alcatraz, right? One is actually a supernatural thing where a bunch of these inmates who were trying to escape, because it was said to be the most unescapable prison in the world. That was the what do you call
branding.
it? The USP branding. वो था और उसमें से भी थोड़े गए थे, but apparently they disappeared. Like they completely disappeared, not dead, not escaped, they disappeared. That is one.
Are you talking about the most famous, the 3 people who escaped?
Yeah. I remember seeing a documentary. In fact, when I went to San Francisco for shows, one of the first things I paid as a tourist attraction was to go to नहीं अंदर नहीं गया, मैं बोला बाहर से एक चक्कर लगा देख के आते टाइम नहीं है मेरे पास. लेकिन it's crazy to watch, man, because there's like, there were prisons in America that would actually get fake prisoners and fake guards and do a psychological experiment to see the behavior towards perception of power. That if in the jail, like bro, jail mein regular आदमी जो patrol कर रहा है उसका भी बहुत power है. I'm talking from the police side, from the collection side, not just your warden or the main jailer or whatever. Even the other guys who are literally just standing, they also have immense power. Right? So
I was just going to talk about this.
Full psychological study to see the effects of perceived power and what happens to people.
So there are 2 experiments in particular that are worth talking about. So one was called the Milgram experiment. Okay, now this took place in the 1960s, where a scientist called Stanley Milgram. Okay, he was a psychologist who was working in. He conducted these experiments in Yale. Okay, now his thing was to look into how obedience manifests itself. Okay, so what he did was basically he constructs this experiment in this way, where there is an experimenter, okay, who has put out this call saying ki I'm conducting experiments to see to test memory and learning. Okay, now I need someone to help me in this experiment. Now the person who comes in as a helper is the subject of the experiment.
Oh wow.
Okay, now it's all of these psychological things, right? They're designed exactly like a reality show. Okay, like a prank reality show.
This is Big Boss.
Yeah. So essentially, what happens is that he hires a guy who's going to, he tells them, I'm going to do a test on memory. That's the subject. Now they hire an actor to play the person who's going to be tested on.
Correct.
Subjected to
this thing. Now, what is the idea? They tell the subject when he comes in that this person, we're going to strap him to an electric chair and he's going to be given shocks. Okay, and if he gets so basically we'll be testing his memory. If he gets things wrong, he'll get a shock. The person who will administer the shock is you. Okay, the helper in this in the process. Now the guy who's going to be administering the shocks, he's shown the shocks. He's in fact given one shock to see ki ye hai. Okay, this is how much it hurts. And on the panel it's written low voltage, very high voltage, extremely high voltage. Okay, all of this is there. Now what was interesting was before they conducted the experiment, Stanley Milgram asked people, what do you think the results will be? out of a hypothetical 100 people, how many people would go through to maximum voltage?
Wow.
Right now, what was interesting was a lot of people said almost none. Right. But when they did the experiment, they found out that the subjects, all of them at some point got nervous. All of them said ki we should stop this experiment, or can I, like, this is getting too much. They said that. But the minute an authority figure said, no, please continue, they did it.
Wow.
They took it up to maximum, even while the subject of this experiment was screaming and shouting, banging on the walls.
Wow.
So basically, he came to the conclusion that when people are put in this situation, they will, very few of them will resist, because they assume that authority knows better.
Better. Correct.
Right. Correct. So to the point where the actor has almost pretended to die. They were like, nahi, thoda aur kar.
Wow.
So this happened. Now, the second experiment that came very close to this was a very famous experiment called the Stanley. One second, sorry. It's the second experiment was the Stanford prison experiment. That's the one you were talking about.
Stanford prison experiment. Yeah.
So psychologist called Philip Zimbardo puts out an advertisement saying that I'm looking $15 I'm going to give to people who will be part of a study to see what prison conditions are like. He gets 24 people, 24 men. Now he does a background check, sees that they don't have a criminal past, they don't have violent tendencies. They're normal, healthy, like just 24 normal, healthy men. Arbitrarily, he decides to separate them into prisoners and guards.
Okay.
Arbitrarily. So these people don't know each other. They don't know whether they were going to be prisoners or guards beforehand. Arbitrarily, they have been assigned these two roles. Now, what happens is, very interestingly, he finds out that the minute these roles are assigned, people take these roles to heart.
Wow.
वो ऐसा prefect बन गया तो prefect है मैं अभी.
Instantly, the prison guards were like, okay, we're in power and we're going to subjugate these people. And the inmates also were like, okay, now we are prisoners and we are just going to be prisoners. Very few of the prisoners eventually said that they wanted to stop the experiment, despite horrible things happening. So what happened is, within 3 days, the prison guards, they had reached this point where they had stopped referring to the people as people, but as the numbers that were printed on their t-shirt. They had started suppressing revolt. They started arbitrarily searching them. They were just being cruel. And the inmates had started protesting. And it had reached a point where psychologically both parties had come unglued.
Shit.
So, you know what the crazier part was? 50 students who were on campus had passed by this experiment, seen what was happening, and they had just continued walking. Because they were like, fuck this shit. Who cares? Kisko ghusne ka isme?
That's insane.
It stopped when Philip Zimbardo's then girlfriend, who was also a psychologist, she came in to see it. And she was like, guys, tum log pagal ho kya?
Pagal hai, seriously. But you know the thing with like jails especially, it's a very attractive area for psychologists and all to study implications of different kinds of power attributed to people.
It's a great area for psychologists, because you are almost coming at it from the point of that these people who are here because they are now property of the state, because they've committed a crime, they have been ostracized from society, and now they're a part of the system, and so chal experiment karte hain. It's almost like they're not humans. It's not humans anymore.
One other component to that is that very few people have sympathy for these people. So even if things go wrong in experiments or whatever,
it'll be ignored. Correct. But talking about psychologists, so do you know about the American psychologist Timothy Leary? No. So Timothy Leary in the 60s and early 70s was a massive, he was a psychologist, done a lot of good work, but he was one of the biggest proponents of the usage of psychedelic drugs. because
yeah.
in his study, etc., it has showed how much psilocybin mushrooms will help, will help you with a lot of things mentally. It could be anything from PTSD, it could be sleep apnea. It helps a lot. And he's done a variety of studies on it. Plus, one of the biggest propagators of marijuana. And this is in the 60s and 70s where America was clamping down hard on it, right? This was flower power generation. Everybody is against war. It's all about LSD and mushrooms and smoking joints and all. And this guy was a big propagator. So, to make an example, he was sentenced to jail for 10 years for marijuana possession and all of that jazz, right? Except when you go into jails, you also have there's an interview that happens with the prison psychologist who determines what your state of mind is, how big a risk are you, which area of the prison you're supposed to be, etc. So now Timothy Leary, in his interview, managed to manipulate all answers into getting a gardening job because he had helped design some of the questions. So he's gone for the interview, manipulated in a way where he gets a gardening job. And it was because of this job that he was able to escape prison. And then was caught and put back with an additional 5 or 10 year sentencing for trying to escape.
Bro, there is, by the way,
no, go for it. No, I was going to go for some of the prisons from which you probably don't want to escape. Okay. Because they're honestly like 5-star suites.
Bro, ये तू स्कैंडिनेविया की बात कर रहा है किधर ना मैंने देखा उस दिन photos, bro. It is up in the mountains, snow-clad, beautiful peaks.
It's not just that.
Very Nordic, Scandinavian, like minimalist design. ऐसे तो उधर बैठ के बाहर देख रहा है, sun उग रहा है तो बैठ के book पढ़, chilies कर.
Bro, I'll show you one picture. Okay, I'll just show you one picture. And this guy is in prison. Okay, I just want to show you one picture. Just 1 second, allow me. Yeah, this guy is in prison.
Dude, I've seen people on well-paid holidays who look a lot more stressed than this guy.
Yeah,
this guy does.
This is a prison. This is a prison called Bastoy in Norway. Okay.
Shocking. Of course it is.
They have tennis, horseback riding, fishing, sunbathing. They have tasteful cottages to house them and lush farms to work on. And yeah,
dude, so Airbnb can literally put up a Airbnb looks property ka header there and public paisa deke jayega rehne ke liye.
100%. So this comes from the fact that it comes from a very basic shift in thinking about how to treat people who have committed a crime, and the shift in thinking is not coming from the fact that punishment is the answer. It is actually restoration. It is actually making you understand what it is, and most importantly, it is about treating you like a human who has committed a mistake. Yes, there are enough arguments in favor of the system simply because there are fewer people, taxes are really high, crime is really low, purchasing power is very high, so there is already a low crime rate. So when you actually send people into a system like this, it's okay to do it. But that's not what we should be looking at. We should just be looking at the mindset of saying that it is about reform and it is about getting people to not be punished and not be humiliated, but to make you realize that it was a mistake of some sort. I guess I don't know.
No, see, I mean, there's also varying degrees, right? Some crimes are beyond the purview of, hey, let's restore and all of that. You need to give your sentencing the right amount of time to keep said person away from society because of the heinousness of the crime. But I feel there's a whole bunch of people, like I mentioned earlier, right, who are in the whole system because of something very small, something very stupid, something that is to a certain extent forgivable given the right amount of time spent, which leads you to sort of rehabilitate. Brazil has some of the scariest prisons also, right? But they also have this one facet to their prison system wherein a couple of prisons, I don't remember the exact name, they encourage all the inmates to read. And for every book that you finish reading, 4 days of your sentence is reduced.
Oh.
But you can नहीं, but ऐसा नहीं है कि वेंचर तू बैठ के पूरा पढ़ लिया और तू 12 साल कम कर दिया अपना. It's maximum 48 days in a year. So 12 months तेरा 4 दिन हर इसका कम होगा, which looking at it from outside seems like nothing. But bro, imagine for that one prisoner who's actually 48 days lesser also is a big
48
thing.
days is more than a month.
Yeah, a year
of your sentence. Yeah,
a year. Now depends on how long your sentence is, but 48. Dude, that way you're also encouraging them to read. मैं तो ये जेल से निकलता नहीं फिर. They're encouraging them to
तेरे पास
read.
Kindle है ना?
तो मेरे को जेल में कौन लेके दे रहा है Kindle चूतिए?
No, but
और मैं ब्राजील के जेल में क्यों?
Also, how are you testing that they've read it?
I think वाइवा होगा उसके बाद.
Yeah.
वाइवा होगा. या तो फिर तो अपने एक दूसरे प्रिजनर ने पढ़ लिया, अरे मेरे को पता ना एंड में मर्डर कौन करता. काजोल. अच्छा ठीक है. ये काजोल committed the murder.
But why is Gupt a book?
It's a part of the curriculum in Brazil. I think it's a part of prison curriculum in general.
Fuck.
This fictitious Gupta, of course, bro.
Dude,
the biggest prison break.
I'll just finish a couple of things about the Scandinavian universe of prisons. And it's not just Scandinavia. There's stuff in Germany, there's stuff in New Zealand, but those are one-offs, right? That actually sort of do it. There's, believe it or not, there's one in Bolivia. And in Bolivia, the one that they've created is almost like funnily enough, it's almost like a community. So, of course, it's a guarded thing. But ek baar tu andar gaya na, it's almost, just think of it like Kamal Amroy Studio or Film City, right? So Film City is guarded from all sides, but inside Film City, there's space, there's chai tapri, so people are running their own businesses, there's communities, there's cafes, there's play areas, there's all of this. So it's like Film City. And
play area?
Yeah, ये सब चल रहा है उधर, bro. So I'm saying, again, they're not coming at it from a correctional facility, right? Like they're coming at it from in fact, if you read the horrific nature of prisons and the prison system, John Oliver did an episode on this, where he talks about the prison system and how the prison system is not just cyclical. So in America, for example, the prisons are not managed by the state.
Yeah, it's a private company.
Yeah. So because they're private companies, they're almost looking at, again, profiteering. They're looking at what else can we get, etc. Right? And because these are almost like ostracized members of society, they're not even given the basic things that are sort of needed. Like there was this whole thing of I mean, even female prisons, right? Like where in women correctional facilities, and the fact is they're called correctional facilities as opposed to be calling being called something else. And they basic hygiene products even in our country, just like there's a limited ration to basic feminine hygiene products, and it could be so many other aspects that gusav into just basically running your day-to-day prisons, because people are trying to squeeze things, and then to use the prisoners almost for labor. And
it's the cheapest no union labor that you can get. Like I don't know about how it's whether it's abused or not, but Tihar jail has their own brand.
Yeah,
they have their own
of
brand.
sweets, of I think clothes, some artifacts. TJs, exactly.
Yeah.
It's called TJs. They have their own brand. In fact, the time when Kiran Bedi was running the prison, she had introduced mandatory yoga. So तेरा कौन सा क्या बोलते हैं, अनुलोम विलोम and the other सुबह को करते क्या बोलते हैं योगा में ब्रो, वो एक
सूर्य नमस्कार
नहीं रे, एक और कुछ ब्रीदिंग का होता है ना सुबह को जो करते हैं.
Please put it in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about.
Breathing को breathing बोलते हैं. Vipassana, sorry, breathing नहीं, but Vipassana. Correct.
Vipassana is meditation.
हाँ, तो जो भी यार, breathing, meditation, अनुलोम विलोम, stretching, कि bro, because here's the thing, that people always joke कि अरे तेरी body नहीं बन रही है, and then you're like हाँ मेरी body बनेगी अगर मैं prison जाएगा. You know what I mean? Because you are so cut off from everything else. There's no distraction. You will try and put your mind and this to anything that will get, whether it's reading, it's working out, you name it. You will do that with a lot more ferocity in a way, because that's your only escape from
boredom.
like boredom and just the shit around you, man. Like I don't know how people do that, but it's it's one of the scariest things. But we should definitely, if we are done with prison, we should talk about prison escapes, because one real cool thing I had.
You mean Prison Break?
Yes, we'll get to that also. But Alcatraz was one of the first prisons to offer you hot water showers to all the prisoners. Hot water. So in San Francisco Bay, where it's cold, imagine as a prisoner, you're getting hot water. You're not going to say no to hot water kar rahe. But you know what the actual reason was? That you get them so used to having hot water that if they even manage to somehow escape, they will freeze when they go into the water, because your body is not used to it only. You've not felt cold water. You're so used to hot. This is like forward thinking max. Right? Everybody else is like, yeah, कितना अच्छा है मेरे को गर्म पानी देता है, लेकिन तेरे को मालूम नहीं है वो क्यों दे रहा है.
Like even behind the empathy, there is calculation.
Calculation कि भाई तेरे को गर्म पानी दे, तो चुपचाप रहे इधर, रिवोल्ट मत कर, और कभी एस्केप किया तो पानी will be too ठंडा for you to be able to swim to shore.
No, like the privatizing of prisons, it's like the opposite of the hotel industry, right? Not the hospitality industry, it's the inhospitality industry, right? It's essentially like, how can I, like the guests will come on their own.
Yeah, yeah, seriously.
And how can I give them the worst possible time?
Seriously. Well, there is this other prison which is in Finland. Shocking. It's called Suomenlinna prison or something. The only thing keeping the inmates and the people inside from the people outside is the yellow picketed fence.
What?
It's a yellow picketed fence. Suomenlinna, ऐसा कुछ तो नाम है, बाबा चेक कर, SUOMELINNA.
So the prisoners are just staying there by themselves.
The prisoners are locking. They are locking the gate because other people are trying to get in.
Are you talking about Sollentuna prison, Sweden?
No, I'm talking about Suomenlinna prison in Finland.
Oh, it's in Helsinki.
Yeah, मैं जा रहा हूँ शो करने के लिए. Please buy my tickets.
तू जाएगा ये प्रिजन पे?
नहीं प्रिजन वाले आएंगे ना बाहर, येलो पिकेटेड फेंस है ब्रो, आके शो देके चले जाएंगे वापस अंदर.
Bro, by the way, he is absolutely right.
अरे I know bro, मैंने रिसर्च किया है. No,
it's worse because of Kautuk. This is the prison.
Shit.
No, but you're not getting the right picture. The one I had seen is literally a picketed fence.
Listen, this has less security than my building society.
Exactly. ये देख आज मेरा स्क्रीन शेयर नहीं हो रहा है for some reason.
अभी होएगा.
ये देख, ये है. ये ऐसा लग रहा है पीछे कोई बेक सेल होने वाला है या उधर एक लेमिनेट स्टोर खुलेगा.
just because it's a prison, just for show, put one barbed wire fence, do something.
And what sort of prisoners do you have inside? Like, the kind of people who like ring your doorbell and run away, or like I don't know, who the fuck are you going to put here?
People have crossed the railway tracks
because they're not coming at it. That's what they're not coming at it from. Thing. There's something called there's a progressive prison, which is one which keeps its doors open. ऐसे सब.
By the way, don't call it a prison. Lina.
By the way, something. So here's a fun fact about the way that prisons are depicted in movies. Right? So there is the one standard, the jail set that you find, right, which is there in Film City in Goregaon.
And you only see the outside of it when the prisoner is coming out and somebody has come to receive them.
Yeah.
So then, वो एक उसको शर्ट मिला है वो करके बाहर आता है.
And it's always
it's always Sanjay Dutt for some reason.
No. Also, the other thing about it is that they'll put the hero in one cell with only just the hero in it, right?
Yeah.
Which is not real at all, because it's what you said, Thakur. It's 22 guys, bad smell, all of that.
100%.
Right.
100%.
They let the heroine in just and to have one full conversation. Like she has this whole talk. They like hug through the bars.
Talking about this, Punjab में भी कुछ आया ना एक recently report में, where prisoners with good behavior are going to be allowed to meet and spend time with their wives.
Oh my.
Spend time. Like conjugal visits बोलते थे
Conjugal
ना?
visits.
वैसा. So apparently Punjab में ऐसा होने वाला है. For good behavior, your wife will be allowed. They didn't mention another opposite sex, only wife.
So
Wife
can you
will be
imagine
allowed.
how many books will be read if they add that to the list? Just if you read books. Also this thing, dude, like, so when they were shooting Silence of the Lambs, okay, so they had to, Hannibal Lecter, serial killer, is in jail, and Clarice Sterling is going to meet him. Now, you know that when you see the movie, he's standing behind a glass wall. Now, this doesn't exist in the world anywhere, but they literally made that for cinematic reasons, right? And that has just been duplicated again and again in every film since. So this whole, like, every Marvel villain is kept in one glass box.
Yeah. With a force field around it, which they will eventually escape. But in fact, bro, talk about escapes. I'll talk about escapes. Like we spoke about Alcatraz, those three men, Clarence something, Falana Dimka, who disappeared. They didn't escape or got caught. They just disappeared. Then you had...
No, they escaped.
But they're never to be seen again. So one of the theories is that कुछ तो है इधर, paranormal, supernatural चल रहा है. दूसरा, you remember John Dillinger? John Dillinger was called public enemy #1 in the US. He is one of the main reasons why the FBI was formed. Was to catch public enemy #1, John Dillinger, who escaped from prison by pretending to have a fake gun. I mean, pretend to have a gun which was fake. और वो करके escape किया है. But one of the most shocking that I had read was there were these three guys in London, not in London, in some prison in the UK, who memorized the main guard's key ka outline. Memorized. Couldn't sketch it, couldn't put it in a soap and get an imprint. They memorized what the main guard ka key ka outline is. Then they went and, they work in the metal shop in the prison or whatever, right? So in the metal shop, out of memory, they managed to make a key with the exact outline and hence open all the gates that they could, because your main guard has that one key that opens everything.
That master key.
Allen key होएगा उसका पुराना.
Imagine if he had like a bunch of keys, right? और इन लोग ने wrong key memorize किया तो उसका अलमारी का key इतना टाइम सोच के बना के.
Bro, मतलब hardcore है. In fact, France में 2001 में there was this prisoner, some Pascal something his name, Pascal Payet or something his name was. He escaped a French village prison by getting his friends to collect him from the top of the roof with a hijacked helicopter.
Yeah.
And by the way, he returned to the prison with the helicopter and helped 3 more prisoners escape.
And then he was caught a month later. All of them were caught.
And was sent to prison for 30 years.
So by the way,
my thing is, after the first happened, don't they think yaar upar se kuch ek covering dalna chahiye? Like, how easy is it to just hijack a helicopter and help prisoners escape? I don't get it.
I don't think it is that easy. Because I think that with watchtowers and everything, I think it's a little difficult, Varun. Plus, you have to first hijack a helicopter.
Baba, you are absolutely wrong.
Oh.
Because there is a whole sub-genre of prison escapes. Please go to Wikipedia and type, I'll tell you the exact thing to type. It is list of helicopter prison escapes.
Oh, it's a list. Oh, not just prison escape, helicopter prison escape ka ek
List
separate wiki hai.
of helicopter prison escapes.
No, but
across the years. So, I'll tell you two notable ones.
Are they successful or not?
Most of them are successful. Most of them. Because, by the way, it's so once this happened, they realized that this is probably one of the most effective ways. It's probably second after digging a tunnel with a spoon.
But too many movies have been made about digging the tunnel.
And that still remains the best way to do it.
Yeah.
But these escapes, right? So I'll tell you two of them. Okay. One of the earliest ones was in August 1971. All right. This prison was in Mexico. And there was a guy who was imprisoned there. He was arrested for murder. Okay. He was put up in the place. And his sister arranges this escape. They get a helicopter, they land on the thing, he gets in and they bounce. Okay, this whole thing took 10 seconds. This whole thing took 10 seconds. They wrote a book about it later called the 10-second jailbreak. Okay, and it was made into a movie called Breakout, which you can check out. Now, the second one was, it took place in 1973 in Ireland, in Mountjoy Jail. And it comes with an excellent quote. Okay, so here's what happens. So basically, an IRA member hijacks a helicopter, forces the pilot to land in the exercise yard of Dublin's Mountjoy Jail. When they land there at 3:40 p.m., 3 members of the IRA were able to escape. Okay, J.B. O'Hagan, Seamus Twomey, and Kevin Mallon. Now, when this took place, there was a prisoner who was in the yard. All right, and he's watching this helicopter land, and these IRA guys get into it and take off. Okay, he's seen this whole thing. He later reported about this, and he basically had this quote to say. He says that one shamefaced policeman apologized to the governor, saying that he thought that the new Minister of Defense was arriving.
Which is also possible, no?
And the prisoner then adds, after what you've done, it's the Minister of Defense leaving.
Yeah, literally. Bro, you know, in South Korea, there was this guy, his name was Pak Choi, almost. Okay, this guy was a yoga practitioner for a good 25 odd years, right? Yoga master. You know how he has escaped prison? He has managed to go through खाने के लिए एक छोटा gap होता है ना,
where they shove the food in. Yeah,
he's managed to escape through that by whatever, bending, stretching, contorting, however, and he did that in 34 seconds.
Wow. By the way, so this guy, he first put they had given him the skin ointment, okay, to lube himself up. So basically he lubed himself and then he yoga'd his way out.
Yeah, no shit. Bro, you know those guys in, again, some British prison who used to work in the more sort of, privileged areas of kitchen. Now, of the prison, which is kitchen, because then you're away from the hardcore labor, you're around, you have tools and stuff like that. So these guys realized that in the prison yard, there was like a speed bump, which they actually found out was not a speed bump. It was actually a pipe that runs through, which was disguised as a speed bump. So one of the prisoners was in a relationship with the tailor in the prison. So uske through they managed to get these things like blade type situation to make a hacksaw. And the way they managed to smuggle it in is burger patty ke beech mein sab pieces dal ke leke aaye, which then they assembled, hacked their way through the pipe and then escaped. While leaving, they put a note saying, "Have a nice day." Smiley dal ke unno kalti hua. Because here's another thing about prisoners who want to escape, right? They want to really show it to the authorities ki fuck you. Like, I'm going to troll you one last time before you go. In fact, jitne Mexican drug lord hai, sabka ek prison story hai escape ka.
Yeah.
In fact, what El Chapo ka video dekha hai wo? Bro, it's insane. It's insane because these fuckers are already planning prison escape years before they've even gone to prison. Oh. Because they know eventually पकड़ा जाएगा तो किधर ना किधर तो जाएगा ही. तो El Chapo पकड़ा गया. He has been put in solitary confinement, which again I think how many movies is it going to need for prison authorities to realize that your big guy prisoners can't be put in solitary or whatever where they are alone because उधर से निकलने का सबसे ज़्यादा chance है. Bro, there's a kick-ass walks video where they've explained. Bro, the tunnel was long.
Yeah, miles.
So he's just sort of walking around in the prison. You can see because there's a camera. Right? The camera is not, ऐसे दीवार है और उसके पीछे टॉयलेट है, तो उधर कैमरा नहीं दिखता है. So you see him pacing around, then he goes to that toilet behind the wall. You can see this on camera, and then suddenly he doesn't come out, and people are like, "What the fuck? कितना टाइम भाग रहा है बच्चों? क्या खाया एल चापो ने?" Then they go and realize that पूरा खड्डा किया है कमोड के नीचे, which goes many feet down, on which there is a bike. The bike is attached to a track. So he's not really riding the bike. The bike type is attached to a track. So it goes even faster. And it goes fucking kilometers away.
And it opens on the film fair stage.
And then he just comes out. It's nuts, bro. It's nuts how they fucking end
This
up
is
doing
one of
this
those
shit.
things where if you put it in a movie, it would be stranger than fiction. Like it would just be like, "Ye kya hai?" Just
Yeah, no, and the I think the fact that you're planning way before you've actually gone into prison, कि ये prison में से ऐसे escape होगा, ये prison में से ऐसे escape होगा, ये prison में से ऐसे escape होगा, and then it's just cut to whichever prison I'm taken to, there is an escape plan in
in
motion.
place.
Bro, there is one which you will not believe. In Alabama, okay, there was a bunch of prisoners who managed to get their hands on peanut butter. Okay, and the wall and the door ka color was that. So if this is a door that says exit, ठीक है, उन लोगों ने उसको cover कर दिया, ठीक है. So the prison guard didn't realize. He thought, "अरे, this is opening towards the cells." So he
Oh,
has
that's elegant.
public English.
That's so elegant, man.
They have just bounced. He thought he was opening a cell, not the exit door. और सीधा भाग गया, scaled the fence using prison blankets और भाग गए. But they were caught within 10 hours. That's the other thing, right? Like, you can escape, but कितना time बाहर रहेगा? That was a bigger fucking scene.
So, by the way, there is a book. In case we have viewers who are interested into going deeper into this, it's a book called Black Warrant. Okay, it's basically the subtitle of this book is Confessions of a Tihar Jailer.
Oh wow.
Okay, and the jailer in question is a man called Sunil Gupta. Okay, he was the jailer at Tihar, and the black warrant that he's referring to is the warrant that is signed by the judges when all the appeals of a prisoner are up and now they're going to be hanged.
Oh shit.
That's the black warrant. And Sunil Gupta writes about the fact that when judges sign this warrant, a lot of the times the judges will either break or throw away the pen that they used to sign it, because it's literally it's signed death of a person.
Yeah.
So so
Scary, yeah?
he has some incredible stories. Like a few of them, like two of them are worth like just quickly talking about. One was, there was a gangster. Okay, so basically he talks about also the fact that like it's not a perfect system. Even within the jail, the similar rules apply where money and power will get you special.
Everything. Yeah.
Special. You can flout the rules of the prison if you have those two things. So he was talking about this gangster who was so influential that he didn't have one cell, he had two. In one cell he used to live, and in the second cell he used to breed pigeons.
I mean, if I had all the money and power, breeding pigeons is the last motherfucking thing I'm going to do. I could go to jail for killing pigeons. That's one thing I could definitely go for.
So now the second story he talks about is that there was this son of a very powerful politician. Now he comes into jail because even the top legal minds couldn't get this guy out. So he's in jail. Now it was so frustrating to the family that here's what they did. The family bought a 5-star hotel that was next to the jail so that they could send this boy food. So the food used to come from 5-star hotel.
Okay. They had to buy the 5-star hotel. They couldn't just send a guy saying, "Hey, khana pack karke."
So I'll tell you why they bought it. Now, what was more interesting was that once they bought this hotel, they hired relatives of other prisoners who were there in Tihar. So the relatives of those prisoners were like, they were basically offered jobs there, and they took up those jobs, and through that they were able to influence those prisoners to treat this guy better. So it was one full long con of a thing that they pulled on this.
But that's needed, bro, because andar bhi sabko hafta chahiye hota hai. If you want better treatment, you get the money sent to jailers inside, the guards, the warden, whoever, for specialized treatment. Like, in fact, I was reading about A. Raja. He was also put in Tihar jail, where tera Abu Salim se leke wo sab log bhi the, right? And contrary to what you think, usko bhi kuch acha preferential treatment nahi mila. At least from this article that I read, he got 7 blankets. तो 4 ब्लैंकेट को वैसे बेड बना के सोता था, 2 ब्लैंकेट को अपने ऊपर ओढ़ता था और 1 ब्लैंकेट को पिल्लो बना. You know, I used to always think that when big famous celebrities go in, what is that like? Imagine Sanjay Dutt when he goes in. For him, to obviously it's like shocking and completely like, fuck, I'm in prison. But imagine all the other guys who are like, they're just going about their day, or suddenly एक दिन, अरे भाई इसको का तो मैंने picture देखा है.
Yeah.
You know, like what must that be like?
I suspect it might also be very similar to like stardom lasts for 5 minutes or whatever, 1 day or 2 days. And after that, like the stardom exists because you don't see them often enough. The minute he's part of your everyday, he's in the line for the, the soggy dal chawal, then it's not Sanjay Dutt, it's inmate number.
And also, I also think that in a scenario like that, it must be so difficult because Sanjay Dutt can't be Sanjay Dutt. Like, because if he tries to be Sanjay Dutt, it's going to be detrimental to his time in prison. Right? Like, he can't be elusive, or he can't be cocky, or he can't be celebrity, because it's just going to be detrimental to his time in prison, saying, ye sab tera ghar pe chalega, yahan nahi chalega. Right? And the other side is, the minute you befriend people and you start to get to it, that stardom sort of goes away. So,
in fact, in China, like rich people can actually hire body doubles to go live out their sentences. You're talking about getting prison contraband. China mein rich people hire body doubles to serve their prison sentences.
Of course. Why not?
और वो लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? हाँ? और वो लोग चिलीज कि वो लोग हाउस अरेस्ट?
नहीं, वो चिलीज. अबे इतना पैसा है तेरे पास, क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है? सुब्रत रॉय जेल में था, वो दुर्गा पूजा फेंकता था उधर. दुर्गा पूजा के टाइम पे चल रहा है, पब्लिक आके परफॉर्म कर रही है, पार्टी है 2-3 दिन का. ये सब भी होता था apparently. But I think now that we've spoken about prison, I think it'll be a good thing, because movies about prisons, jails, prison escapes are some of the most interesting and fun movies to watch. The good ones, like Shawshank Redemption, continues to be one of the best movies of all time. Right? Yeah. And as much as it's about the prison, it's more about the psychology of the people inside, what happens to them, and eventually they're leading to their escape. Right? So Shawshank is obviously there. Prison Break, for all the younger listeners and watchers of our podcast, if you guys don't know, there used to be this amazing show 17 years ago. It was one of the first few.
17 years?
Imagine. Prison Break. And that was one of the first shows I binged.
I'm shocked.
Binged.
Except Prison Break का मेरे को सिर्फ एक ही चीज प्रॉब्लम था कि फर्स्ट सीजन के बाद एस्केप हो गया, उसके बाद सेकंड सीजन में क्या करेगा, तो वो लोग कुछ और कर रहे हैं, फिर थर्ड सीजन में वापस कुछ और कर रहे हैं.
उसका फर्स्ट सीजन इतना बाप था, वो शो इतना तोड़फोड़ हो गया, that now they've escaped. Now the second season was, I still found it cool. Even the second season was really good, because you had that guy is a very popular actor, bro, who plays the FBI agent chasing them. So it's very cool. Then the ratings dropped. Then they said, भाई ये शो का नाम Prison Break है, Prison Break हो गया. थर्ड सीजन में उसको वापस जेल में डाल दिया. थर्ड सीजन में वापस डाला, फोर्थ में वहां जेल से भागता है वापस. फिफ्थ सीजन में उन्होंने बोला fuck it, अभी कुछ भी हो रहा है. Prison भी नहीं है उसमें, break भी नहीं है. Then it became just something else. So fourth season onwards it became tutty. But the first,
first season was banger.
It's one of the best like fucking shows. तूने देखा है Kautuk?
I haven't seen Prison Break.
No. So then I will not spoil it for you.
I remember the hype completely, and like
bro,
never got into it for some reason.
Super. So if you want to watch, you should definitely watch. और कोई है? Prison Break हो गया, ये हो गया. Any other? Escape from Alcatraz back in the day. कौन है अपना?
Yeah, The Rock, dude. The Rock.
The Rock, लेकिन थोड़ा वो पल्पी था, मतलब.
अरे हाँ, but great film.
टाइम पास. उसका हिंदी वर्जन देखा कि नहीं? कयामत.
फिर no. So then there were a few.
In fact, I saw this really cool show. It's on Apple TV. It's called Blackbird. Okay, it's got that Taron Egerton in it, and the movie is about him sort of getting falsely implicated to go into jail, and the only way out of prison for him is to get a confession from another inmate.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very good show. Very good show. Should definitely watch it.
Correct. I don't know if you guys have seen, obviously, legend film, Great Escape, apna Steve McQueen.
So I was confused between Escape from Alcatraz and Great Escape. Correct.
Very, very good. I'm also thinking There was also Papillon, which was
The book is
again
also
Steve McQueen only. Yeah, which was again Steve McQueen from what I remember. There was a concentration camp escape which I called Escape from Sobibor.
Sobibor, yeah. वो भी अच्छा है. इनफैक्ट एक बॉलीवुड भी बना था, मिलन लुथरिया बनाया था एक. It was one of these great escape types only, that you're escaping from like a prisoner of war camp or a concentration camp. Akshay Kumar था शायद उसमें. Akshay Kumar, Amit ji.
Hey bro, one more pulp one, great one. Nicolas Cage. Come on.
कौन है?
Con Air. Yeah. क्या pulp film.
But that was less prison escape, more about prison transport के बीच में escape.
बीच में escape. It's prisoners escape.
Prisoners escape. And obviously गुप्त बोले बिना, मतलब पिक्चर में बहुत कुछ है, लेकिन उसने संडास खोल के नीचे से भागा अंडा सेल में से. That's always going to be the highlight of his career. Any other prisoner facts, prisoner stories, prison breaks?
नहीं, और कुछ सूझ नहीं रहा है मेरे को.
Okay, so on that note, that's the end of this episode of the Internet Set. So in case we missed out on any cool prison break stories, or if there's any other facts, stats, trivia, or personal stories that you have about prisons and prison escapes, let us know in the comments. Make sure to please like, share, subscribe. And if you're watching this and if you're in Europe, please go buy my tickets. If you're in India, please buy Kautuk and Neville's tickets. And boys are still researching as I end this episode. So anything else, boys? Kuch bolna hai?
No, I was just trying to find if there are other movies that we've forgotten, but I'm sure there are. So if we've forgotten any movies, please drop them in the comment section below.
Yeah, and be good. Stay out of jail.
Yeah.
See you guys next week. Salamesh. Bye-bye. Tata. Take care.
Man, Helsinki is having a weird effect on Thakur.
You know, the thing is, we don't even know which city this episode will air from. So we can just randomly name names.
Safe to say Helsinki.
Yeah.
No, Helsinki is last. 27 November.
Okay, then
Achha.
Brussels.
अच्छा अभी तक रिकॉर्डिंग चालू है. I thought बावन ने कट किया.